They are not refugees, they are criminals. Those who are trying to cross the border illegally are criminals, and as a criminal should be deported, and there is no discussion about it.
You said you want to deport the children of illegal immigrants.
I said the entire family unit.
You said you want to deport the entire family unit of undocumented immigrants.
Yes.
I will rescue every city and town that has been invaded and conquered, and we will put these vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail or kick them the hell out of our country.
Immigration has been the #1 most controversial topic in the 2024 United States presidential race and will likely be the key factor in who will soon become the new president. But it's not just in the United States that the issue of immigration has become so politicized in recent years. It's happening in countries all over the world, particularly in Poland, Sweden, and Germany. Now, some politicians are fighting back against immigration in a way that has never been seen before. Many are willing to take extreme measures to keep outsiders out and end immigration for good.
We don't need your doctors. We don't need your engineers. Take them all and pay for them. We don't need them. You know why? Because there's zero terrorist attacks in Poland. Why? Because there is no illegal migration in Poland.
Poland's approach to immigration is extremely selective and, in the opinions of some, extremely controversial. Dominik Tarczynski, a Polish politician and member of the European Parliament, has called for a strict immigration policy that will no longer allow illegal immigrants, particularly Muslim refugees, into the country. This decision comes after the nation happily welcomed more than 2 million Ukrainian refugees, many of whom continue to live in Poland. The Ukrainian refugees were allowed into the country because of the ongoing war, but the welcoming attitude Poland has for outsiders seems to have only extended to the Ukrainians.
How many refugees has Poland taken?
0.
And you're proud of that?
If you are asking me about Muslims illegal immigration, none, not even one will come to Poland, not even one if it's illegal. We took over 2 million Ukrainians who are working, who are peaceful in Poland. We will not receive even one Muslim because this is what we promised.
Tarczynski claims that the decision to no longer accept immigrants has nothing to do with racial or religious discrimination, as many critics have suggested. Rather, he says it is simply based on the need for greater national security. Tarczynski has been firm about Poland choosing this path to ensure that only peaceful, legal, and economically contributive immigrants are allowed into the country. According to him, the Ukrainian refugees in Poland have adapted well. They've been obeying Polish laws and contributing to the workforce. Because of this, they will be allowed to stay.
The Commission President says that you're racist. You sound proud of the fact that you haven't taken any refugees.
Of course, because this is what our people are expecting from our government. That's #1. This is why our government was elected. But this is why Poland is so safe. This is the reason why we had not even one terrorist attack. Look at the streets in Poland, and we can be called populists, nationalists, racists, I don't care.
While Tarczynski remains firm in his zero-tolerance policy for immigration in Poland, he has been critical of the European Union's approach to migration and rule of law. He's described it as politically motivated and a tool used to impose certain policies on member states like Poland. He argues that the EU's quota-based system, which mandates that member states accept a set number of migrants, has failed in countries like Germany and France. In both of these countries, immigration-related issues have reportedly been surging lately. Tarczynski has also pointed out that in countries like Sweden, with far more lenient immigration policies, there has been a rise in crime and civil unrest.
We've seen this roil Europe. Sweden, for example, used to be one of the most welcoming nations for refugees who wanted to resettle there. But following a series of riots and a stark rise in crime that's linked to the migrants, they said no more. And they reduced the number allowed to come into the country. The country's new prime minister started what is a dramatic shift to Sweden first last year.
Tarczynski says it is because Poland has remained so firm on their immigration policies all along that they have managed to avoid the issues that many other nations are facing, including rising unemployment rates. But that's not the only problem Poland has reportedly been able to avoid. They've also experienced low national debt and a strong GDP post-COVID.
The lowest unemployment in European Union is Poland. The highest GDP after COVID in European Union is Poland. One of the lowest debts in European Union is Poland. So don't give us this rubbish about the need of educated immigration.
Despite the fact that Tarczyński's zero-tolerance policy when it comes to immigration appears to be working pretty well for the nation as a whole, it has been a reason that other parts of the European Union have looked down upon Poland. It is still the belief of much of the European Union that it is important to be welcoming to everyone, including those of all backgrounds, religions, and culture. To people with those beliefs, this is what Tarczyński had to say.
Well, there's a difference between a refugee and a migrant, especially illegal migrant. As a lawyer, I'm trying to repeat it every single time for years now. They are not refugees, they are criminals. Those who are trying to cross the border illegally are criminals, and as a criminal should be deported, and there is no discussion about it. Our policy is very straight. Zero. Not even one, never ever, will come to Poland if it's illegal.
Tarczyński's warning has been crystal clear for those who are considering daring to try to sneak into the nation illegally. The government will catch these individuals, punish them, and deport them.
If he's trying to cross our border illegally, he will be punished and deported, not welcomed as we heard. We're not going to pay for them. We're not going to fit them in beautiful rooms in hotels or anywhere else. They will not stay on Polish soil. They will not stay in Poland.
To some, these rules have been considered overly harsh. Some people have questioned these regulations, saying things like, aren't these refugees just trying to find a better life for themselves and their families? But Tarczyński insists that a refugee and an illegal migrant are two very different things, and as long as a person attempts to cross the border illegally, they will be considered a criminal by the Polish government.
Poland, as I said in the parliament, and I'm trying to repeat it, Poland is the only country in the European Union without any terror attack. We haven't had any terror attacks in Poland because there is no illegal migration. That's why every single time I'm trying to say, be like Poland, be brave, believe in your own nations. But most of these spineless politicians in here, in Brussels, are destroying their own countries.
A major part of Tarczyński's stance focuses on Poland's record of zero terrorist attacks. He attributes this directly to the nation's policy of not allowing illegal migration. In his view, illegal migration often correlates with increased crime and security risks. Tarczyński maintains that the country's strict border policies and thorough immigration processes have kept Poland safe and free of terrorist threats for so long, unlike other European nations that follow less harsh migration protocols. He claims that it's these nations that are on the path towards destroying their own countries. Tarczyński has remained an outspoken fan of former United States President Donald Trump, who during his presidency worked towards building a wall along the United States southern border to help prevent migrants from entering the United States illegally.
We're going to build the wall. We have no choice. We have no choice.
If Trump succeeds in securing a second term, his plan is to continue to build that wall and take immediate action against migrants who are currently living in the United States illegally.
I must say, Mr. Trump was right about the wall. He built a beautiful wall. Can you imagine America now without a wall? Poland built a wall. We have a great wall, and no one is able to enter. No one is able to come to Poland. And as we promised, our government promised in 2015, not even one will come to Poland ever.
If anything, Tarczyński's stance regarding ending immigration has become even more fierce in recent months. Because of this, many people have begun wondering about those 2 million Ukrainian refugees who remain living in Poland. What will happen to them? And will there come a point where they will be forced out? Tarczyński seems to be able to reassure these individuals, most of whom are women and children, that they will continue to find refuge in Poland while the war is going on, at least for now.
Well, Dominic, you will continue to support allowing Ukrainian refugees, genuine refugees, into Poland during this war, correct?
Well, you have to remember that our situation is completely different than America and Americans. We are a neighboring country with Ukraine, and by the international law, those who came to Poland, over 2 million, mainly women and children, are honest, genuine refugees. But our law was changed for some time to support them financially, support them with education, with the healthcare, and all they need to live in Poland.
However, Tarczynski made it clear that he's not happy with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who believes has not shown enough gratitude towards Poland for being so welcoming to the Ukrainian people. Because of this, if Poland decides that they no longer want to be supporting and welcoming of the Ukrainian refugees, they could decide to withdraw their offer to allow these people to continue living there.
But for many reasons, recently, Mr. Zelensky seems very ungrateful, I must say, and our law might be changed. We don't have to support them with all these benefits, like financial support. We don't have to do it. We wanted to do it. We decided to do it, but we don't have to do it anymore.
Meanwhile, Poland has also been taking a renewed focus on cultural preservation, which Tarczynski claims is directly connected to why he has taken such a passionate stance against immigration. He has expressed concerns that if parts of the European Union continue to accept people of all backgrounds in such huge masses, that Europe will lose its identity and no longer be the same place that many call home. In his opinion, one of the biggest parts of European culture is a religion that is deeply rooted in Christianity. This is where his opinions have become particularly controversial to some, as he believes protecting Christianity as the predominant European religion will be critical in preserving European culture.
Poland is the last stronghold of Christianity and normality in Europe. I'm proud of it. Over 1,000 years of history, our kings, John Paul II, all of these big names, not many people know that Copernicus was Polish. John Paul II obviously was Polish. Chopin was Polish. Then King Sobieski, who stopped Muslims in Vienna, he was Polish. He saved Europe. So we contributed, we gave the world so many things, so many great people, that I'm proud to be Polish.
Tarczynski believes that it is Poland's duty to help preserve Christianity as a key part of Europe. In fact, he even feels personally responsible in preventing what he refers to as woke culture from taking over as a result of outside beliefs. It is clear through Tarczynski's statements that the religion he is most afraid of growing within Poland and throughout the rest of Europe is Islam. Despite these criticisms, he maintains that the low percentage of Muslims in Poland, which is only around 0.1%, contributes to the country's security and social stability. He argues that while not all Muslims are terrorists, most terrorists are Muslim, a statement he claims is based on statistical data. He has also expressed concerns about the Hijra, or Islamic migration, and views it as a strategic attempt by Muslims to influence Europe demographically.
The problem started in 2015 when migration started from Muslim countries. That's why they called me Islamophobe. It has nothing to do with Islamophobia. This is just a fact that from 2015, millions, not hundreds of thousands, millions coming to Europe were coming from Muslim countries. So that was a wave of Muslim illegal migrants.
Tarczynski claims he has been an outspoken supporter for former President Trump, not just because these share similar beliefs about immigration, but because he believes that Trump will help protect traditional and Christian values in a world he feels is increasingly adopting liberal, left-leaning ideologies. Tarczynski claims that events in America often have a ripple effect, influencing European countries shortly after, and he views Trump's return as a safeguard against this. He believes that many Western countries lack strong conservative leadership, which has led to moral and cultural degradation, and that Trump's approach would provide the clarity and direction Europe needs to counter leftist trends.
It's so important what is going to happen in America, because this is not only about Trump and Harris. This is not about Republicans and Democrats. It's not about America only. If Donald Trump wins, we have a chance to back to normality. Normality, basically. If the wokeness will continue in America, it will spread around the world. Because what I see in Europe. Whatever happens in America, 6 months later, we have it in Europe.
While of course deeply controversial, it is certainly not just Tarczynski who holds these beliefs. There are other politicians within the United States who share his concerns about the continued rise in immigration and what the long-term effects of it will be on American culture. While former President Trump is obviously the most outspoken and well-known American politician fighting for stricter border protection, there are some who are fiercely backing him up. One of these most notable politicians is Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek Ramaswamy is a conservative American politician who was born in Ohio to Indian immigrant parents. He grew up to have an incredibly successful life within the United States and earned degrees at both Harvard and Yale, two of the nation's most prestigious universities. In 2023, while he was still a Republican presidential candidate, Ramaswamy sat down for an interview with NBC News when he infamously claimed that as president, he would deport the children of illegal immigrants.
You said you want to deport the children of illegal immigrants.
I said the entire family unit.
You said you want to deport the entire family unit of undocumented immigrants.
Yes.
Entire family unit. So let's just be clear about what you mean by that. So someone was born to undocumented immigrants. Today, let's say you're president today, you've implemented this policy. They're adults. They work. They pay taxes in the U.S. They vote in the U.S. Maybe they voted for you.
They shouldn't be voting.
When pressed about his stance, Ramaswamy was unapologetic and held firm. His statements were interpreted as confusing and as somewhat of a shock to many, considering Ramaswamy's own parents were immigrants when they entered the United States. Ramaswamy clarified his comments, stating that he does not have a problem with migrants entering the United States as long as they do so by following the proper process instead of trying to come over the border illegally.
So I want to give you my full perspective on this issue because I will acknowledge this is a difficult question. And what makes this a difficult question is that many people who are in this country illegally are still good people who came here for a better life for their family, in part because of a US president, that's President Biden right now, that gave a tacit and implicit signal that it was okay for them to come. And I think that that's in many ways not their fault per se. It is the fault of an administration that gave them a wink and a nod and said it was okay to come over, that we have laws but you don't have to follow them.
Many of Ramaswamy's critics would be quick to point out that it was not just during the last 4 years that Joe Biden has been president when so many immigrants entered the country illegally. Many entered while Trump was president, others while Barack Obama was president, and many more in the years and decades before that. Ramaswamy insists that the biggest issue remains that the policy regarding immigration in the United States must be made much clearer than it is now. While we know that Ramaswamy was ultimately not chosen to be the next Republican presidential candidate, he has fiercely backed former President Donald Trump and his campaign for re-election. Just days before the 2024 election, Ramaswamy gave a passionate speech at Trump's Madison Square Garden rally. During this speech to a screaming crowd, his message for illegal immigrants was once again very blunt.
But our message to every illegal immigrant is also this: we will return you to your country of origin. Not because you're all bad people, but because you broke the law. And the United States of America is founded on the rule of law.
But to the legal immigrants of the United States, Ramaswamy gave a much more welcoming address. He encouraged them to continue to work hard and to contribute to the United States while living the American dream.
Our message to every legal immigrant in this country is this: you're like my parents. But our message to every illegal immigrant, if you came legally, you get the same American dream that everybody else does. Work hard, get ahead, make contributions to this country, love the nation, and that's our message to legal immigrants.
It's clear that the issue of illegal immigration is far from being solved not only in the United States, but throughout much of Europe. While many politicians can offer what seem to be quick fixes to a complex problem, the reality is that it will take time to find a lasting solution. Some say enhanced border security and stricter entry requirements are necessary for a positive path forward. Others say that merit-based immigration programs may encourage those looking to enter the country to work hard and contribute in order to continue to stay. Vivek Ramaswamy has proposed that before deporting illegal immigrants, the migrants should be offered a path back that will allow them to enter the country legally. Former President Trump's latest statements on immigration are far harsher. He has made it clear that his focus is predominantly on a mass deportation and that he will prioritize American safety and security above all else.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history. I will rescue every city and town that has been invaded and conquered, and we will put these vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail or kick them the hell out of our country and fast.
As for Democratic candidate Kamala Harris, she claims that the reason that the United States has had so much trouble securing a border security deal is because of former President Trump and his allies.
After decades in law enforcement, I know the importance of safety and security, especially at our border. Last year, Joe and I brought together Democrats and conservative Republicans to write the strongest border bill in decades. But Donald Trump believes a border deal would hurt his campaign. So he ordered his allies in Congress to kill the deal.
Harris further stated that if she becomes the next U.S. president, she will reintroduce the bipartisan border security bill Trump allegedly blocked and would sign it into law. Harris also stated that she wants to reform what she described as a broken immigration system by upholding the United States' identity as a nation of immigrants. Her proposal includes creating a pathway to citizenship for immigrants and ensuring border security reforms that support lawful entry while maintaining the country's security and humanitarian values.
We can create an earned pathway to citizenship and secure our border.
Despite Harris's promises, current U.S. presidential polls show that many Americans are still unconvinced.
All right, get this. Federal authorities in El Paso relinquishing custody of a man linked to this violent jewelry robbery.
Venezuelan security forces have killed hundreds in what could count as extrajudicial executions, according to the United Nations.
Yeah, this is all footage from the US, but in front of the camera, there's always the same people, Venezuelan soldiers from the Tren de Aragua gang. Venezuela was once a prosperous nation with the world's largest oil reserves and stunning natural beauty. Now, it has descended into a state of profound crisis. Money is just about as valuable as monopoly cash now, and most people can't afford even basic healthcare or groceries. At the center of this crisis lies the notorious gang Tren de Aragua and a corrupt president who denies the existence of the gang.
What do you think about what's going on in Venezuela? The whole situation out there?
Well, I know it very well, and Venezuela is right now being run by a dictator.
Now, Tren de Aragua's influence has grown to alarming proportions, even reaching the shores of the US, and people are worried, perhaps rightfully so. Let's explore the latest chaos and see the brutal tactics that Texas has just employed in making sure this gang is reduced to ashes. These were former President Trump's words when asked about the current situation in Venezuela.
What do you think about what's going on in Venezuela? The whole situation out there?
Well, I know it very well, and Venezuela is right now being run by a dictator. We were enemies with Venezuela. Venezuela was going to collapse, and people could have gone back to Venezuela. They're in our country now. They've released tremendous numbers of criminals into our country.
Now, you might disagree with some, or many, of his claims. Migrants are rarely bad people. We all have a right to move to other countries looking for a better life, and most migrants coming from south of the US into the US want nothing more than that. However, along with many Venezuelans running from the Tren de Aragua came Tren de Aragua itself over the Mexican border into states like Texas and Arizona. But you see, the current crisis goes way back for this once beautiful country. A turbulent political landscape and economic mismanagement mark Venezuela's journey to its current state of crisis. The country's reliance on oil exports as its primary source of revenue left it vulnerable to the volatility of global oil prices. When Hugo Chavez came to power in 1999, after a failed coup d'etat in 1992 and a short short prison stint, he implemented his Bolivarian Revolution, which initially saw improvements in poverty rates and access to education and healthcare.
Ahora estamos viendo, como se preveía, los efectos del tratamiento, todo el cuerpo, y el hecho de la caída del cabello en el tratamiento de quimioterapia, bueno, es normal, y además indica que el tratamiento está siendo, digamos, efectivo de manera genérica. Es además my new look. How are you? Bien. Es un new look.
However, his policies of nationalization and price controls, coupled with corruption and mismanagement, set the stage for the country's economic downfall. Following Chávez's death, in 2013, his chosen successor, Nicolás Maduro, took office. Under Maduro's leadership, the situation in Venezuela rapidly deteriorated. The collapse of oil prices in 2014 exposed the fragility of the country's economy, leading to hyperinflation, widespread shortages of basic goods and medicines, and a humanitarian crisis of unprecedented proportions. Amidst this chaos, criminal organizations found fertile ground to expand their operations. The most notorious among these is the Tren de Aragua, a gang that has risen to prominence in recent years.
There's already about 8 million Venezuelans that have fled the country since 2015 or 2016. Another 40% who are still in the country wanting to flee, that could be another 10 million people. This would be almost 20 million people, more than half the country.
Yeah, that's how bad it is. More than half the country wanting to get the hell out of Dodge. And that's because of the marriage made in hell between Nicolás Maduro and Tren de Aragua.
Hay pánico en Venezuela. Las advertencias hechas por los grupos ilegales como el Tren del Llano, el Tren de Aragua y otros se empezaron a cumplir en protesta contra el fraude electoral de Nicolás Maduro. Durante las últimas horas en el estado de Guárico se han escuchado continuos tiroteos y la orden de alias Oscar del Llano es reclutar y dar armas. Algunas zonas de ese estado parecen barrios fantasmas. Alex Oyola.
Tren de Aragua originated as a prison gang in the state of Aragua, Venezuela. Taking advantage of the country's deteriorating security situation and weakening institutions, the gang rapidly expanded its influence beyond prison walls. Their activities span a wide range of criminal enterprises, including drug trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, and human smuggling. The gang's name, which translates to Aragua Train, is believed to reference the railway line that runs through Aragua State. This imagery of a train network aptly describes how the gang has spread its influence across Venezuela and beyond its borders. Tren de Aragua's growth has been meteoric. From its humble beginnings in the Tocaron prison, the gang has evolved into a transnational criminal organization with a presence in multiple countries across South America. Their influence extends into Colombia, Peru, Chile, and even as far as the United States. The gang's modus operandi involves infiltrating migrant routes, exploiting vulnerable populations fleeing Venezuela's crisis. They have been known to force migrants into criminal activities, using threats and violence to ensure compliance. This has led to a complex intertwining of the migrant crisis and criminal activities, further complicating the regional response to Venezuela's exodus. The rise of Tren de Aragua has had a devastating impact on Venezuelan society. In areas where they operate, the gang has effectively replaced state authority, implementing their own brutal form of justice. Extortion has become commonplace, with businesses and individuals forced to pay protection money to avoid violence.
En menos de una semana, Venezuela se ha sumido no solo en los brotes de violencia en la calle, sino parálisis temporal de transporte urbano y el suministro de combustible. Las autoridades también acusan a los mismos que destaparon el fraude electoral de culpables.
Wait, did he just say electoral fraud? Yeah, about that. Nicolás Maduro's been running Venezuela like it's his personal monopoly game, changing the rules whenever he's losing. He's shut down anyone who dares to speak against him, turning the country into his own little dictatorship playground. But here's where it gets weird. His iron fist approach has actually helped Tren de Aragua flourish. How does that work? Well, as Maduro weakened the police and courts, Tren de Aragua swooped in like vultures, taking over entire neighborhoods. And it goes the other way around too. Maduro's actually benefiting from their reign of terror. C. Maduro uses the fear created by Tren de Aragua to justify his harsh policies. He's like, look how dangerous things are. You need me to protect you. Meanwhile, the gang is thriving in the chaos Maduro has created. It's like they're feeding off each other's awfulness. This twisted partnership came into the spotlight during the July 28, 2024 presidential election. Maduro claimed he won with 51% of the vote, but pretty much everyone else called BS. The opposition candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, said the election was rigged. And guess who was spotted intimidating voters? Yep, Tren de Aragua members. So now Venezuela's stuck in this nasty loop. Maduro's dictatorship creates perfect conditions for Tren de Aragua to grow, and the gang's violence gives Maduro excuses to tighten his grip even more. It's like a never-ending cycle of corruption and crime, with regular Venezuelans caught in the middle. The gang's activities have contributed significantly to the country's skyrocketing crime rates. Kidnappings, once rare in Venezuela, have become increasingly common. The fear instilled by Tren de Aragua and other criminal groups has destroyed the quality of life for ordinary Venezuelans, already struggling with economic hardship and political instability. The influence of Tren de Aragua has not been confined to Venezuela's borders, as the Venezuelan crisis has spurred a mass exodus of migrants. The gang has exploited this movement to expand its operations internationally.
They are going through the complex, like I am told that they are, heavily armed. They patrol the complex. They control who comes in, who goes out. They go from door to door. They have forced their way into many complexes. They have thrown people out.
Recent reports indicate that Tren de Aragua has established a strong presence in the United States, raising significant concerns among law enforcement agencies. The gang's members are believed to have entered the country by blending in with the influx of Venezuelan migrants seeking asylum. You can only imagine what this does to the already divided political discourse in the U.S. In the U.S., Tren de Aragua has been linked to a variety of criminal activities, including drug trafficking, human smuggling, and violent crimes.
Maybe even a deadly threat facing both our state as well as our country is the recent entry and expansion of the vicious Venezuelan gang known as Tren de Aragua.
Their presence has been noted in several states, including Florida, New York, and Texas.
All right, get this. Federal authorities in El Paso relinquishing custody of a man linked to this violent jewelry robbery. This happened back in June in Denver. So our partners at News Nation, they're reporting it's part of a Venezuelan gang.
The growing threat posed by Tren de Aragua has led to calls for stronger action against the gang. In a significant move, the state of Texas has designated Tren de Aragua as a terrorist organization. This designation allows for enhanced law enforcement measures and stricter penalties for individuals associated with the gang. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas announced this designation. During his press conference, Abbott noted that more than 100 TDA members had been arrested at the Gateway Hotel in downtown El Paso on charges including human smuggling and possession of illegal drugs. Some media reports described it as a takeover of the hotel by the gang. Michael Shifter from Inter-American Dialogue explained, "It is clearly a major problem that needs to be dealt with. I think there's reason to be confident that U.S. law enforcement can handle it. This move reflects the growing concern about the gang's activities and its potential to destabilize communities in the United States." The issue of Tren de Aragua and Venezuelan migration has become a hot-button political topic in the United States. Former President Donald Trump has made strong statements about the situation, claiming that Venezuela is emptying their prisons into the U.S. While these claims have been disputed by fact-checkers, they highlight the politicization of the issue and its potential impact on U.S. foreign policy and immigration debates.
They've released tremendous numbers of criminals into our country. If you look at Caracas, it's known for being a very dangerous city, and now it's very safe.
Trump went as far as saying this about Venezuelans. They're drug dealers, they're criminals, they're murderers, they're rapists. Everything's been moved into the United States. Yeah, it doesn't take much knowledge to realize not all Venezuelans are so, and it's not cool to talk like that about an entire nation. And as Michael Shifter pointed out, it might not be a coincidence that Abbott named Tren de Aragua a terrorist organization right before the elections. Indeed, but whatever your stance on the elections, The reality of Tren de Aragua is an increasingly violent one, and many law enforcement agencies in the U.S. can no longer ignore it. Texas has taken a particularly aggressive stance against Tren de Aragua, reflecting the state's concerns about border security and transnational crime. The designation of the gang as a terrorist organization is just one part of a broader strategy to combat their influence.
Expansion and entry of this gang could destabilize public safety in the United States as well as in the state of Texas.
Texas has implemented several measures to target Tren de Aragua. The state has bolstered its presence along the border with Mexico, aiming to intercept gang members attempting to enter the country. Law enforcement agencies have created dedicated units to focus on Tren de Aragua's activities within the state. Texas has also intensified efforts to collect and analyze intelligence about the gang's operations, working in collaboration with federal agencies and international partners. Recognizing that many Venezuelan migrants are themselves victims of Tren de Aragua, Texas has initiated programs to build trust with migrant communities and encourage reporting of gang activities.
Together, they will seek to identify and arrest TDA gang members.
The terrorist designation carries significant legal implications. Individuals found to be associated with Tren de Aragua now face more severe criminal charges and longer prison sentences. The designation allows for easier confiscation of assets believed to be linked to the gang's activities. Law enforcement can now employ more invasive investigative techniques when dealing with suspected Tren de Aragua members.
TDA gangsters are like cockroaches. They multiply quickly. Small intrusions into communities become infestations if not aggressively pursued.
Clearly, the Tren de Aragua problem isn't just giving Venezuela headaches, it's causing migraines for U.S. policymakers too. Think of it as adding ghost peppers to an already spicy dish of U.S.-Venezuela relations. Here's the deal. The U.S. has slapped sanctions on Venezuela, hoping to pressure the Maduro government into behaving. But some folks are wondering if these sanctions are backfiring, creating a perfect storm for gangs like Tren de Aragua to thrive. And it doesn't stop there. With Tren de Aragua members sneaking into the US, the immigration debate has reached a whole new level of heated. It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. How do you protect asylum seekers while keeping the bad guys out? Despite the frosty relationship between the US and Venezuela, there's a growing chorus calling for the two countries to team up against Tren de Aragua. It's a bit like asking sworn enemies to work together on a group project. Awkward, but necessary. However, Venezuela's government poses a real problem. Their approach to Tren de Aragua has been inconsistent, to say the least. A few times, Maduro literally denied their existence. Other times, his government pointed fingers at the political opposition, accusing them of being in cahoots with the gang. Meanwhile, the government's already infamous corruption is like a fortress protecting Tren de Aragua from any real harm.
They're running away from a situation that was impossible to stay in.
As millions of Venezuelans flee their crumbling country, Tren de Aragua has spotted an opportunity. They've turned migration routes into their personal toll roads, extorting desperate people and sometimes forcing them into criminal activities. But it gets worse. The gang has also become a major player in human trafficking, preying on people's dreams of a better life. And as Venezuelan migrants spread across South America, so does Tren de Aragua's network. It's like they're franchising their criminal empire. Texas has already shown their stance on the gang, and it's most likely going to get even more violent from here on out. There's only one way to treat designated terrorist groups, but law enforcement agencies across the Americas need to work together like a well-oiled machine. We're talking about upgrading tech, sharing intel, and coordinating operations. But even the best crime fighting won't fix the root of the problem. Venezuela needs to get its economy back on track and rebuild its institutions. Creating jobs, strengthening the justice system, and giving young people alternatives to a life of crime are crucial. At its core, solving the Tren de Aragua problem means fixing Venezuela's political crisis. That means finding a way back to real democracy. Easier said than done. The trick is balancing tough security measures with protecting human rights. After all, many of the people caught up in this mess are victims, not villains. The Tren de Aragua story is like a cautionary tale come to life. It shows how quickly things can spiral out of control when a country falls apart. But it also highlights how interconnected our world really is. What happens in Venezuela doesn't stay in Venezuela. It spills over borders, affects policies in far-off countries, and challenges the international community to step up. As the situation evolves, the world faces a daunting task, containing Tren de Aragua while also helping Venezuela get back on its feet. It's a tall order, but one that requires our attention and action. After all, in today's global village, we're all in this together. Hey, thanks for tuning in. What are your thoughts on the current situation and on Texas's decision to name the TDN a terrorist organization? What do you think is next? Leave a comment, and before you leave, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. All right, catch you soon.